All right, welcome back to another podcast. Today we have on the program Dylan McDonnell. He is the CEO and founder of Foodini. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Michael. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So again, we're going to this week talk in terms of your dietary preferences that people that listen to the show are always trying to find new ways and important ways in order to make sure that they can stay within their goals and their dietary preferences. But today, especially, kind of talks to people mainly with allergies as well. So we'll touch on that. But why don't you kind of tell the story of how you guys became a company that helps restaurants and consumers try to be able to navigate eating out, especially with their dietary preferences.
Yeah, absolutely. So my quick background, you probably hear an accent. So Irish, diagnosed as a celiac when I was 10 years old after a few years of being a bit sick and no one really knowing what was wrong with me. But once I got figured out, gluten-free diet, for the most part, much better. Not really getting sick that often. But the one place that was kind of consistently an issue was always dining out. Is always dining out. Or eating out of home or ordering online, anywhere really. And my professional background prior to this was lawyer, so I was in the legal world. I wasn't in health or nutrition or wellness, but over time I just got more and more frustrated with the different incidences that kept occurring. Staff not having information, not caring, giving me wrong information, getting served the wrong food and being sick for a few days after. Just like a culmination of a lot of little things over 20 plus years. And eventually I got to a point where it's like, there has to be a better way. Like, this can't be the reality in this day and age. And then I dug into the numbers in terms of like how many people really are impacted by this. Because you're in your own little bubble. You think, it's me and a few others. But the numbers were kind of mind-blowing. You have, in the US, you have 33 million Americans that have a diagnosed food allergy. You have another 50 million Americans that have some form of food intolerance. So they react negatively to the food, but it's not an allergy per se. And then you have another 70 million Americans that follow a lifestyle diet. That's your vegan, your vegetarian, your keto, your paleo, your low FODMAP, your low carb. So it's about nearly half the population all in. And I just couldn't understand how there's so many people who need to understand what's in their food for either health or lifestyle reasons, and so little transparency into what is in food when you're dining out. And so I decided to see if we could find a way of solving for the problem for both the food side and the consumer side.
Excellent. So you work with restaurants primarily in order to help them kind of, how would you say, utilize your tool to be able to have the consumer be able to scan a code on their menu and find out right away as they enter in their dietary preferences and their allergen preferences to right away see what's on that menu that they can order right off the bat.
Exactly. There's two parts to it. There's one, the kind of creating that source of truth. So like ingesting their menu data, ingesting their recipe data, ingesting their product data, correctly tagging that. We have an AI solution. We have a team of dietitians as well. And between the two of them, we create this central source of truth where their entire menu is correctly tagged and enriched with the right dietary data. And once we have that source of truth, it allows us to have that personalized menu solution. So as you kind of said, Michael, when someone walks into a restaurant, there'll be a QR code saying allergies, dietary needs, scan here. Or if they go onto the restaurant's website, it'll be the allergy dietary menu button. And when they scan or click, it prompts them to create their dietary profile. We've over 150 different diets and allergens they can choose from. So not just the major 9, a lot of those other lifestyle diets and more niche allergens I mentioned as well. And then once they just create that profile, gluten-free, vegan, nuts, save, instantly we'll show them what they can and can't eat. Here's exactly what you can eat. Here's what you can eat with a modifier and what that modifier is. And here's what you can't eat and why. So it's completely personalized, it's fully transparent, and yeah, it solves a major pain point for both the restaurant and the consumer.
So the modifier is typically on menus where it's like, if you're gluten free and something has, let's say, croutons in it, it says, okay, the modifier of that menu item is just remove these items, right?
Exactly. So the restaurant, like when we ingest their menu from their POS system, it will tell us like what can be removed or not. Sometimes maybe the restaurant can't remove those croutons, so it will be contains croutons can't be removed. But if it can be modified to remove or swap something like a gluten-free bread, or a vegan milk, or what have you, that modifier is clearly articulated so the consumer knows what that swap is.
And this is really important because it's a pretty high number. I forget what the number is. You probably know. It's a pretty high number of people go into a restaurant and they ask the server. The server typically doesn't know. We have this. I'm not a celiac, but I do react to gluten, so I do stay away from gluten, with like you mentioned, which is a very high part of the population. So, and we've had times when they say it's gluten free, and then I find out a couple hours later that it definitely wasn't gluten free. So I think this is a way to solve for that, is it not? Because this is something that is built into your system to where there's an accuracy, a high accuracy level of this, right?
But to your point, so first of all, 54% of all food allergy incidences in restaurants occur after the staff are notified. So that straight away tells you, more than half the time, even when you tell them, a mistake still happens. And
Sure.
we can come on to the benefits of working with us, and why I have empathy for a lot of the staff around this. But that's just the reality in terms of the data, what the data tells us. Equally, every 3 minutes in the US, someone goes to the emergency room with an anaphylactic reaction also. So like, this is happening much more than people realize. And it is like, for you, you feel a bit unwell. I'm lucky as well. I'll get sick, but I'm not going to die. Like, for the people who are anaphylactic, like, this is life and death for a lot of these people. Like, it's no laughing matter. And unfortunately, historically, I don't think this has been taken seriously enough. But the tides are changing in that regard, thankfully, because it needed to happen.
When you probably have a lot of is the the area that I think that a lot of people would benefit. You have parents, right? Because if you have a child who has a nut allergy and you want to go to a restaurant, that can be a very, very daunting task because you, a you have to make sure that they really, really, really understand how risky this is, right?
Moms of kids with food allergies are the power users of our platform.
Sure.
No doubt about it. You've hit the nail on the head. Kids, even teenagers, like that kind of phase where, your kids are going out with their friends for lunch or dinner or whatnot. And it's maybe the first time that they're outside of a parent's supervision, where, the mom is usually the advocate at the table, asking all the questions. And like, a lot of the kids aren't necessarily at that age as confident or as well trained to look out for themselves. And I think equipping them with a tool on their phone, which kids are now used to, everything's on the phone, right? So equipping them with something that they can use to get the information they need and keep themselves safe is one of the reasons, that moms of kids with food allergies, I think, love our platform so much.
Yeah, and like you said, there's kind of a twofold benefit to the consumer. Is there's one part of the consumer who has a very serious allergy and could have a very serious health issue, and then there's another part of the equation, I think, are people who just would like to stay away from certain things, like you said, dietary preferences, or people that have sensitivities and not necessary allergic reactions.
Yeah, like, if you feel unwell after you eat a certain thing, it doesn't have to be medically diagnosed for you to be bullish about avoiding that food, right? And then, like, vegan is another perfect example. Like, most vegan people take that really seriously. They treat it as an allergy. They do not want anything that is animal produced being put into their body. And the amount of hidden ingredients, how
I
difficult
do.
it
I
is.
do.
It is tough. And again, it's tough because there is no documented data source. And I think it's worth making the point, right? Like, I have a lot of empathy for restaurants and food service generally. We also work not just with restaurants, but with hotels and stadiums and, schools, universities. We can work anywhere food is served. But most operators and restaurateurs, if they could just wave a wand and like give this information to consumers, they would. Like, they're not doing it out of badness. They're not doing it for the most part because it's really hard. Like, there is no data layer that they can just tap into to easily give this information, and to do this manually is really, really time consuming. And that's kind of one of the reasons why, we exist, is we make it super easy for restaurants to do this and to give this transparency to consumers. Like, we do all the heavy lifting. We've built out all the tech to do it. And then there's a raft of benefits for the restaurant as well, like above and beyond just it being the right thing to do. And you kind of mentioned it a second ago. We've about half the population who have fallen in this bracket of allergy or dietary need. Most of those people will look at a menu before they go to check if there's something that's suitable for them. If they can't find that item, they're not going to go. If they don't go, that means you've not just lost that person, you've lost their family, their friends, their co-workers. We call that the veto vote. You lose the group, not just the one consumer. So it's a huge revenue loss now, but it's also a huge revenue opportunity for the restaurants who do a good job around this. And then over the top, they're the most loyal consumer, because when they do find a place that caters for them and has options that suit them, they will keep going back again and again and again and again. So you've got the revenue opportunity, you've got the operational efficiency. We see about a 60% reduction in the number of questions being asked to staff. And then as a result, a massive reduction in the mistakes, because again, you're taking that 17-year-old server who's never been trained on food allergy out as the current line of defense, which is exactly what he is. And what can he do? He's never been told. I've learned every allergen and every ingredient and every menu item. Like he has no way of navigating. And then also the data. So we can tell restaurants last month in X location, you had 1,000 profiles created, 40% were gluten-free, 25% were vegan, 10% were keto. Help you understand how to optimize your menu to maximize revenue based on your customer profiles, help you from a marketing standpoint, because you also understand the kind of type of customers that are coming into your venue. So there's a multitude of business reasons why this is really smart for restaurateurs and food service operators. And I think that penny is finally beginning to drop.
Yeah, I think the last point you mentioned is pretty powerful, because now you're optimizing your revenue. Because options if you have options for people, and because we are vegan and I stay away from gluten and stay away from some other things, you hit the nail on the head. We will look at the menu long before we step foot into that restaurant. And if there's not a lot of information on there of what we can expect, we tend to go to the next one that has more information. And so a restaurant would benefit from this, because they're going to be able to maximize their revenue, because people are going to say, I love going to this place because they're very transparent with everything. I can just scan the code and I know exactly what I'm eating and I feel safe. And so they're going to go back there more often, just like we go to a lot of the same restaurants more often, right?
100%. And I think there's two things, and you've touched on them there, that consumers now expect. One is personalization. They're getting it on Netflix, they're getting it on DoorDash, they're getting it all the algorithms understand them on their various platforms, and they expect transparency. Like they care about what they're putting into their body more now than ever before. You have the food as medicine movement, you have the function health and superpowers, where people are testing their microbiome and their gut health and understanding like some of the more nuanced or unique foods that they should be avoiding. Like this trend towards personalization and expectation that the restaurant and food service industry can cater to their specific needs is only going to continue to grow, and it's already massive.
Yeah, it's a great point. There's everyone has personalization everywhere in their life, so why not put it into the food choices too? If they have that, it's just going to make them much more eager to go out, because people sometimes are eating more at home now. They're ordering in, and this app works for those restaurants as well, right? You're ordering in. There's a restaurant in town here that we order takeout from, and they have an allergen menu on their website. So that helps with those customers as well.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's across the board.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
Interesting. Do you have what is the main do you see any objections from any restaurants?
The main objection, honestly, I think there's a lack of education and awareness probably across the industry in terms of like the importance of this. And again, I get it. Like restaurants, it's a tough business. Like
Yeah.
they've had such a challenging few years. Like COVID was so difficult. And then, your average small restaurant, like, just getting staff in and getting the lights turned on and paying bills and making sure that customers get served good food and have a good experience. Like there are so many things that are on their plate every single day that they're trying to prioritize, as they should. And allergens and dietaries can be an afterthought. And I get why. I'm not going around saying it's terrible that this is the case. It's the reality of business sometimes. And again, I think that's why, part of our pitch to them is like, we understand that you're busy and you have 101 different things to do every day, and allergens is not your area of expertise. Let us do it for you. We're not that expensive. We're pretty quick. We're very good at what we do. Let us come in. Let us do this for you. And not only are you, protecting your business, not only are you doing the right thing, but you're also going to benefit with more revenue, more loyal customers, better data, and your business is going to operate more efficiently as a result as well. Like, you're going to see your return on investment 100-fold back. And it's just building that education and awareness, because we're a new technology, Michael. Like, we're not like replacing an existing reservation system with a better one. Like, we're a completely new tech, and that sometimes just takes time for industry to understand and adopt at scale.
For sure. There's new laws that were passed recently as well that that is I think helping this movement. Would you say especially the law in was it California? I think it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, it's huge actually. So just for set the scene, there's until October this year, there has been no regulation in the United States as relates to food allergies in restaurants. You have consumer packaged goods, which have to have nutrition and allergens labeled, and you had nutrition, which was brought out about a decade ago for restaurant groups with 20 plus locations, but never anything about allergies. But on the 13th of October, Gavin Newsom in California signed SB 68, which for the first time mandates that any restaurant group or food facility with 20 plus locations nationally, where at least one of those locations is in California, must label their physical and digital menus for the major 9 allergens effective 1 July 26, so 6 months time. And so that's a huge step forward in terms of, this is now regulation. It's now compliance. Like, you don't have a choice anymore for those groups that are caught. And it captures most of the major enterprise and mid-market groups as well. So for the consumer in California, I think this is a huge step forward. I also think there'll be trickle effects across the country, because most of these chains, if they do it for California, I think they're going to keep a consistent experience in the rest of their locations around the country. There's now additional like kind of copycat legislation popping up in other states, or getting ready to go in other states, which I think is going to be huge. Yeah, there's just a lot of momentum behind this, which is well overdue. Like, this has been regulated in Europe for over a decade. You can't
Yeah.
open a hot dog stand in Ireland without having all the allergens labeled for. And so it's only a matter of time, I think, before this becomes the standard here. This was just the first domino to fall in California, and I think that's ultimately good for everyone in food service and in on the consumer side.
Yeah. Why do you think Europe is just ahead of us in a lot of in the food world, in the health world, and it's even going to the ingredients that they allow? Why do you think that is? Do you have an opinion on that?
The number one reason is regulation. Like, a lot of the stuff, you look at like a bag of chips here and the same brand, same bag of chips in the UK, the ingredients are fundamentally different. And the reason is, a lot of those ingredients here are banned over there.
Yeah.
And whatever your politics, like MAHA and RFK are doing a lot of work around ingredient transparency, around trying to ban a lot of those kind of food dyes, and maybe some of the substances that are known not to be healthy.
Yeah.
And also, they've made food allergy a priority health issue for their administration as well, which is obviously good for the food allergy community. But yeah, regulation, unfortunately, is often required before there's movement. It's just the reality, right? It's like, money talks, and if something is, until someone
Yeah.
is told that they can't do something a certain way anymore, and there's a law behind it, most of these big corporations, aren't going to change their ways just because it might be healthier.
Yeah, that's for sure. And they're certainly not don't have a track record of transparency with the consumer, that's for sure. Unless they're forced to, like you said.
Exactly.
So how long has the company been around?
A few
About a year?
years.
Yeah.
About in the US, about a year and a half. I actually
Yeah.
originally started the company in Australia, just to add more.
Oh,
I was living there at the time, and started and scaled a bit there, and then came across here. Yeah, April of 24. So just about a year and a half.
Excellent, excellent. I download, and I know this isn't a huge part of what you do, but there is an app that you guys are working on eventually developing, correct?
Yeah. So the current experience, as I mentioned, is like web app. So
Yeah,
consumer can download that, but most of the time they just use it's a URL solution that just pops up like a website on their phone.
sure.
But we do have a consumer discovery app. It's if you're any listeners in LA, that's kind of the place where we have it in beta at the moment. But the use case there is as we keep onboarding more and more locations that have their verified allergen menu, we want to publish them on our app, the Foodini app, so that consumers can discover the restaurants who have documented this information and are making it, safe for them to dine in. And so, yeah, same kind of concept. You create your dietary profile, and we will show you the restaurants in your area that have suitable options for you. And so, anyone who's listening who wants to just check out the experience, feel free to do so. But maybe move your location to Los Angeles once you're in there, so you can actually see it in practice. But over the next period of time, our aim is to get to all major cities and be able to provide that kind of discovery experience for consumers wherever they are.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I did. I downloaded it. I put my dietary preferences in there, and then I put the location in Los Angeles just so I can kind of see like what is ahead of us in this type of application, that eventually this is going to be able to do this once you get enough data and get everyone kind of on board. There's another app that I use from another company, which is a vegan finder of restaurants, and you type in
Happy
your
cow, maybe?
location. Happy
Which one?
Cow, yeah, I didn't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
Happy Cow, yeah.
yeah,
Great,
yeah,
and I use it all the time as a vegan, and we've gotten so many restaurants off of that app. So this app reminds me of that,
yeah.
but
100%.
but I think, like, you can eat vegan or not or vegetarian, and that's a personal choice, but I think where your app really kinda takes it to the next level is we're talking about, like you said, people can die if they have something in their food that they were told was not in the food, and then they trust that and they go there. How do you get your data? How do you put together your data? Who are you all culminating your your
Yeah.
expertise from?
Just on that, just before I answer that, to your point, I've used like the Happy Cows. There's a number of other like similar like Yelp for food
Yeah,
allergies or Yelp for vegan or whatnot. And don't get me wrong, they're super helpful. Like peer reviews from the community is helpful. The problem is that those platforms have no working relationship with the restaurants. So
right.
it's entirely community generated feedback. And like you could have gone to a restaurant last week and the item is vegan, but then they changed the recipe and put something in there this week, and now it's not vegan anymore. So
Interesting.
there are, pitfalls, unfortunately, in terms of doing this accurately and comprehensively when it's just peer reviewed. But they're definitely helpful, and I've used them myself as well. In terms of where we get the data, so a lot of the work we've done is partnering with a lot of the players in industry. So we pull menu data from POS and online ordering platforms. We pull recipe data from inventory management and recipe management systems. We pull product data from a lot of the big manufacturers, distributors, suppliers who we've also built relationships with. So we've kind of had to go across the spectrum of where this data lives, because it's very fragmented currently, and build out those relationships and partnerships in order to be able to get the data from them in a streamlined way, in order to have our system be able to ingest it quickly, efficiently, and so on and so forth. And like I said, we have like a very comprehensive AI large language model system that does a lot of the heavy lifting, but we have a team of dietitians who QA everything and run the entire onboarding process as well, because you need to have that human in the loop when it comes to something as important as allergies.
Yeah, it sounds very, very thorough. The and obviously, so you're culminating ingredients. So for restaurant, like you said, one week is using, let's say, a honey mustard, which sometimes has milk in it, sometimes does not have milk in it. So if it's listed as not having milk in it, so if your dietary preference is no dairy, great. But then 3 weeks later, they buy it from a different supplier of that mustard, and now that mustard does not meet that thing. So you're able to continuously update that.
100%, and it happens all the time. It happens even it can happen even easier than that, where a supplier can simply run out. So they'll, let's say for the last year, they've delivered you Heinz ketchup, But for
Yeah.
some reason today they've run out of Heinz ketchup. So now they give you Dillon's ketchup. And
Yeah.
the truck just shows up with the different substitution. Like it's not like it's a new order, or it's just like they say, oh, we didn't have this, so we gave you the closest comparable. But those two things can have different ingredients and different allergens, which can then the knock-on effects all the way along. So like these are like the real things that happen in industry right now. The good is that the likes of the regulation in California is going to really help these distributors and suppliers look very carefully at what they're currently doing, because liability now is going to increase a lot more when these things happen, if there isn't more formal communication around it, or the tolerance for this kind of practice will continue to lessen, is the point. But yeah, it's the reality, Michael, and what we always say to consumers is, unfortunately, there is just no guarantee. There is no perfect. There's close to, and there's restaurants and food service operators who deal with this a hell of a lot better than everyone else. But unfortunately, if you are highly allergic or very sensitive, like, you are taking a risk every time you dine out. And I think you should still be able to live your life like everyone else, but you need to understand that there are steps you need to take to protect yourself as the consumer. And one of them is understanding that the reality of the way the restaurant world works is that between supply chain and cross contact and everything like that, there is always going to be some degree of risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I preach all the time on this program is you have to take ownership of your choices, and you have to do a little bit more digging than the next person. If you have a severe allergy or just have a preference, like, you have to take it upon yourself to really investigate. There's a lot of things out there that people can just do for themselves as well. But I think this is a very handy tool. I love giving people on the program, the people that listen to the program, just the more tools and the more knowledge and the more information we have as a human being, just the better off we're going to be. And I agree with you. Look, if you're going to eat out, you already know that there is some risk involved to that than sitting at home and making it yourself. We all know that, but we do want to live our lives, right? So we would like to go out with family and friends, and people invite you to a restaurant. You don't want to be the person that's like, I just want to go because I don't know what they have to eat there.
And that's exactly, so two things in that. Like, one, a lot of, like, I talk about those, like, the super user food allergy moms or dads, where they make that, but they're like, we need our teenager to be a normal teenager, but like,
Yeah.
and we don't want to keep them at home and stop them from living their lives. But we understand there's that degree of risk. But like, the 90-10 difference between going to a restaurant where they know the restaurant has taken the time to document the allergens in the food versus the one down the street that hasn't, like, intuitively, the degree of risk is so much less at one than the other. Still with no guarantee, but like, the likelihood, it's just common sense, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I was going to make a second point there, and it slipped my mind now. I can't remember what the second thing I was going to say there, but moral of the story is, yeah, that
It's
trans.
information, it's knowledge, it's power.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, that's what I was going to say.
Yep.
One thing we always say to consumers as well is we don't make recommendations. And what I mean by that is, I'm not telling you that you should eat gluten-free or should eat vegan. I'm not telling you, I'm not giving you medical advice. What I'm giving you is transparency into what is in the food, so that you can make an informed decision based on your own risk appetite and your own personal needs, based on your conversations with your doctor and your dietitian team or whatever. But it comes back to your point of knowledge is power. If you have the data, if you have the transparency, you are so much better equipped to make an informed decision to protect yourself.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said, my friend. Well, Foodini, tell everyone a couple of last things before we wrap up. One, what's ahead of you guys in the future, where you're headed, and then just wrap up with where people can find the information about your product and your
Sure.
service, I should say.
Yeah, so continuing to grow. So we're working with more and more restaurant groups. We're working with stadiums. We're working with, like, ultimately, we hope that in the next year or two, for anyone who's listening who has any kind of these dietary or allergy needs, that wherever you dine out, whether it's on a plane, at a music festival, at the ball game, at a hotel getaway, that there will be this transparency provided to you, so that you can enjoy food when you're in those environments. The consumer app will hopefully be able to continue to scale as well, and go to new cities. And for anyone who is listening and wants to like check out or learn more about us, our website is foodini.co. Our app is available on the app stores. As I said, just chuck your location to LA if you want to kind of have a go through the experience. And you can contact me directly on LinkedIn. I always love to talk to anyone who is passionate about this space, be that someone in restaurant or food service, or be that someone with an allergy or dietary need themselves. So yeah, I would say those are the main places, Michael.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Dylan McDonnell, really appreciate you being on the show, and I will put all the links to everything to find Foodini in the show description as always. Appreciate you so much for your time. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for having me on. Really enjoyed the conversation.